Thank you, Vadim. I will move to Violeta Sacara. Violeta, what's your perspective?
Hi. Thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm very privileged to be surrounded by these distinguished guests. It's my very first time here as well. And my experience is also in the financial markets. I'm a derivatives trader, so it doesn't immediately apply to the situation in Moldova because unfortunately financial markets are not sophisticated enough to have such instruments in Moldova. But once I was invited to this panel, I started talking and thinking about this at a much larger context, and I think that a lot of people on this panel are making very similar points. A lot of major themes are emerging, and it has to do with, credibility and trust and institutions, and I think we all agree that long-term political solutions are necessary, but in the short term, I personally, I'm young and inexperienced, and I don't think that I can fix the political system in Moldova. I don't think anybody here can, single-handedly fix the political system. So I was thinking, think small, think something achievable, dot down some very concrete, specific ideas. So that's what I did. So I was thinking that, in my industry, in financial markets, probably in all markets around the world, it doesn't matter if they're financial or real goods and services, you need a healthy dose of distrust and a healthy dose of trust, right? That's how two people, one is selling, one is buying, they distrust and trust each other at the same time. Well, in Moldova, I think we have a lot of distrust. Credibility is an all-time low, probably should be even lower. But what we need is this healthy measure of trust. So I was thinking about the institutions that could benefit from it. Number one is obviously the government. They would really need some credibility. Unfortunately, they can't get it overnight. So what we can do is leverage technology. And I know that some of these projects have already been mentioned, but what I was thinking was implement a technology that allows crowdsourcing, which has become a very en vogue, very fashionable concept these days. Crowdsourcing in order to navigate the very complex, bureaucratic, nightmare systems that exist in Moldova. So if you want to file for articles of incorporation, if you want to apply for a subsidy, if you want to take advantage of a particular project, because there's so much financing coming from outside the country that people are just not taking advantage of, well, what you can do is entrust a non-governmental organization with this project of doing crowdsourcing for specific projects like this. And if anybody here is interested in that, I am willing to help. A second institution that would need some credibility, I think, is mass media. I was very happy to find out that mass media, together with the church and the military, actually hold some credibility in Moldova. I was shocked to hear that, actually. I think mass media in Moldova is disgraceful. And I actually believe that it is the absolute pillar of democracy. I do agree with the comments made before. You cannot expect the public to vote well or make an informed decision if they're not informed, they don't know what's going on. And it's not only about the facts, it's also about providing context and providing analysis to those facts. Context is probably even more important than whatever exactly happened today at 10 a.m. It's all a much bigger picture issue. So what I was thinking is, well, this is going to take a long time to fix. So it's probably needs some fixing in the US as well. And what we want is to get people involved in this project before they become cynical. When there's still hope, and I know that there's a lot of anger here, and there's probably even more anger in Moldova. And I think that before that sets in, when people are still idealistic and they want to contribute and they want to believe, young people, before they know reality, that's when we need to get them. So what I would suggest is creating a lot of journalism clubs in high schools and universities in Moldova. I think, again, I'm very happy to help if anybody's interested in this idea. I think that one of the most formative experiences of my childhood was to be part of the debate club in Moldova. There were many debate clubs, so it really should not be an isolated project. It should be in many places. And there were so many friends that I made, and so much value in an open dialogue. And all of these principles we have kind of brought with us in our path of life. So, friends that I made back then are now unfortunately, some of them are in politics, but also some of them are in the mass media, some of them are in filmmaking, in non-governmental organizations, some of them are in business and industry, and they've learned from this open dialogue, but they also create the civil society that we're trying to promote here. So I would suggest journalism is the kind of pursuit that a young person can learn from, not only for their profession, but for their life. And if they do become, actually professional journalists later on in life, the better, because hopefully if they can report correctly in the schoolyard if there's a fight or, the classroom is dirty, maybe they can also report the same kind of, transparency and objectivity later in life. So that's something that I would be happy to help with. What else? I was thinking that politics needs some credibility, and again, I can't fix it, but I would suggest, and I know that Madam Minister here is one of the very few hopes for the future, so I would suggest that anybody who would like to get involved in politics should probably come up with a message that is less divisive. I believe that in Moldova, a lot of people are manipulated to vote for the right, for the left, or for the center, disingenuously, focusing on conflicts from long ago, things that we no longer care about, where we come from, the kinds of alliances we want to make. Are we, going east or west? Are we going to the moon? What people really care about is, they care about their quality of life and standard of living, and they care about, health, education, and infrastructure. So I believe that a party that lets go of the divisiveness of the past and just focuses on domestic policy potentially could bring people together, create a sentiment that could win an election. Of course, election fraud is always going to be a problem for us, so that I have no solution for. And so the other thing that I was thinking about, and that's drawing more upon my own experience in the financial markets, and also, talking about as an investor, a foreign investor going to Moldova, trying to figure something out. Moldova is a fertile ground because, growth rate is going to be huge. The base is so low that the growth rate has the potential to be huge in terms of economic returns. So the problem is that, like it was mentioned before, people are afraid of putting their money where their mouths are, because in Moldova, it can disappear overnight. So in the US, people get some transparency from what we here call a credit check, right? We have a credit system, a credit history system. I think Moldova would benefit from some version of that. Putting that into the hands of the government would be a disaster, of course. So it would have to be done either by a non-governmental organization, a special project. I'm not exactly sure what the legal framework should be, but a credit history concept could work very well in Moldova because it would expand credit, it would expand financial markets, and it would allow people to develop trust in each other. Because when I go to Moldova and I slip, I don't know whom to ask for help. I'm afraid that it could get worse, right? So just understanding if somebody you're hiring or somebody you're renting to or someone that you are partnering with in business is a person whose integrity is verifiable would go a long way. And finally, I think the judiciary system is obviously in deep trouble, and I don't have a justification for why, but I believe that appointing more women in the judiciary would strengthen the judiciary system in Moldova. I also believe that, you know, in business and in politics and in many other aspects of public life, but I believe that there are studies, specifically in the judiciary, where, you know, there have been pretty dramatic results. And I don't want to comment why, but that's how it is. And finally, again, if anybody is actually interested in any of these ideas, I'm very happy to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Violeta. You mentioned one very important suggestion, which actually relates to what Madam Minister mentioned in her opening remarks, investing in the skills, especially critical thinking skills. This is what you've tried to do with the new educational code, which would help us also advance the idea that Dorin and Vadim have mentioned. Educate people to make informed choices and put up a fund to support this, which advent might help us educate a more responsible and a proactive citizen in the Republic of Moldova.